I'm not singing. I have nothing to sing for you today. Here on the Suns Jam Session podcast, The Aftermath. Yeah, season's over. Here we are, May 2nd. If you had told me back in September that the Phoenix Suns season would be over by May 2nd, I wouldn't have believed you. I would have called horse shit. Or I would have said, another pandemic? Are you serious, Clark? But here we are, dealing with the aftermath of the season. Matthew, it's been a week, huh?
Yeah, it's been a week. How are you feeling? Feeling pretty good?
I can't answer that yet. I can't answer that. That's part of Matthew I have to ask. That's my first question for you on the other side of the podcast.
How are you feeling physically? Like everything else in your life going okay? You're back to the normal schedule
before the season started? Eating a little too much.
Eating too much now?
A little bit. Gaining a little weight back. I'm not.
Comes and goes, my man.
I'm eating my feelings. The other day, like I get off of work, I drive to go get my dry cleaning because I get my dry cleaning, and I go inside and I get my dry cleaning. I go back out, and my truck it won't start. It's like beeping at me. It's doing all kinds of weird stuff. The battery died, so it's a whole process of replacing the battery. And it's actually good that it happened right now because it's not 180 degrees out. But every 2 years, if you live in Arizona, you know that every 2 years you need to replace your battery. And so I replaced my battery. I'm using my wife's car. I drive down to AutoZone. I drop it off. I buy a new battery. I come back. I put it in. And then I realize that I've left the fucking terminal connector on the battery that I just turned in. So it's like I have the little thing, but it won't connect because I have to screw it to the connector that actually goes around the node. So I have to drive back down. And there's little crackies all over AutoZone. There's always a couple crackies on the outside of AutoZone. Always. And some lady with like a really red nose, and she just has that cracky voice. And she was in there the first time I was there. When I came back, she was on the outside. I'm like, she's getting closer and closer to my car. If I had to make a third trip back, she probably would have been in the back seat. So, it was like a 3-hour ordeal. But the advantage of all that is I had no game to watch. This was Tuesday night when it was supposed to be game 5. I'm like, had this happen on the Suns had still been in this thing.
You have all that free time. I'm sorry about that. That sounds like a pain in the ass. And of course, you had to leave that behind the connected part. But it was nice because that one show, the Baby Reindeer show that everyone's talking about, I checked it out. It's weird. I binged that two nights in a row. And that's the first time I watched a show like that since the season started. So that was pretty nice.
It's a pretty fucked up show. It's weird.
It's a weird show. And you just realize the guy's a loser. But
I'm watching Pirates. I'm watching Pirates of the Caribbean. I just got Assassin's Creed Black Flag because it's a pirate. That. Yeah, I mean, I'm just loving life. I'm changing batteries and downloading games and watching movies and spending a bunch of time. And like the Aussie Suns fans podcast says in the chat, it's been nice watching some basketball today and not having to stress about the result.
Yes.
That's the other side of this, right? It's definitely something that is frustrating because you'd love to still be in the heat of battle and watching your team compete for a championship. But part of the vetting process is acceptance that it's over. And now we have like 8 months, 17,327 minutes until the Suns play again is what it feels like. So you can go outside and change a car battery. Or what else have I done this week? I did yard work. I planted some grass.
Oh, nice.
My wife is very happy that the fucking season's over.
Yeah, it relieves a lot of stress of the people around you. They can count on you now, but you don't have any excuse to get out of shit now. Like, you just feel, Suns game's on.
Yeah,
got out of that one.
I take the dogs for a walk. Well, Suns game's on.
Suns game.
Nope, I've been walking the dogs. So there's still a lot to talk about, though, and that's one thing that we want to remind everybody. If you're an avid watcher, got to use the right article adjective there. If you're an avid watcher of the Phoenix Suns and the Suns Jam Session podcast, we're not going anywhere. We'll be here every week. Maybe Thursdays is the day that ends up working for a while. It might be a Wednesday here, a Tuesday. That's why it's important to set the notifications on YouTube to on, and it'll let you know when we are going live or the moment that we do go live, so you can hear about all of the goings-on around the Phoenix Suns, because the NBA world does not stop simply because the Suns decided not to play defense. We're going to talk about some things on this podcast. Obviously, James Jones and Matt Ishbia had their end of season interviews yesterday. So some very interesting thoughts on some of those statements and just what the overall vibe was like, as well as talking about rumors about players who are potentially leaving. Those are the subjects that we'll cover on this podcast. It's a reminder to everybody, if you get a chance, go to the Autograph app, utilize the promo code SunsJam, download it. I got like a little badge today because it's like 3 weeks in a row you've been using this. It gives you a little badge. It's like,
oh, it's very cool.
It's where I read all of my content on Bright Side of the Sun. And I got to say, I got a great article coming out tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Arizona time. It's a fun one. It's an interesting one. It makes you think a little bit. It's got a lot of little quips and comments, and it's definitely some gonzo journalism that I enjoyed writing over the past couple days. So definitely check that out. Anything on Brightside is right there on the Autograph app. And follow me, Darth Voida. Follow him, Matthew Lissy, Bright Side of the Sun. Pop a beer. Hey, I have a beer because you know what? I'm not stressed out anymore. And why not? Just pop them if you got them. Ooh, yeah. Should have had more of these during the season. Let's talk Suns. Phoenix Suns lose. Oh wait, I don't have to talk about the Phoenix Suns lose. It's our old habits. So used to going live after every game and saying those words. We have other things to talk about, and let's start there.
Matthew, I've got to ask.
So, Matthew, I got to ask, it's been 4 days since the season ended and since we last recorded a podcast. How you feeling? And I'm not talking about what are you doing, just how you feeling.
No car battery stories.
No car battery stories. No calling guys losers on Netflix shows.
Yeah, he's a loser.
He is.
So, how am I feeling? I'm feeling good. I'm feeling really good. I think I'm a little bit numb from the past few years going to the offseason, and it is a pain to be asked that question constantly, season after season, of how I'm doing after the Suns are exited from the playoffs. But I've adjusted. I've been a better man since then. I was joking. I've become a better man. I'm callous to the whole idea that the Suns will ever make a championship, and I've lived with it for quite a while. So right now I'm feeling good, and it's really nice watching other basketball. You know, watching these other teams play, you just know that the Suns do not fit. They were never ready for these teams. They were never ready for the playoffs. It's a different kind of ball game out there right now. So it's nice to sit back, like Gavin said early on, that if you want to watch some basketball, no stress, just pop on the TV every night. There's something good on. There's good series all over the place. Suns wise, put them on the back burner. Don't care right now. But we will talk about them. Still, it's a Sun spot, right?
It is. And I think that I echo a lot. You know, it's funny because you sound like a hardened man after this. Like there's some grit that was gained through going through the struggle, and you know, I just don't care anymore and fuck it all and get off my lawn. Like you're in kind of that stage, right? And that's what happens to all of us as Suns fans after every year. We've definitely had these conversations in the past because this is what our 5th off season that we've done with the Suns Jam Session podcast, and none of them have resulted in a championship. So we do talk about the emotions following it. I feel like it definitely is something that I got over rather quickly. It wasn't like losing the finals. It wasn't like losing the year after that, or even last year. It definitely is just kind of this like, okay, that sucked. That season was weird as shit. And I'm just going to put that one in the rear view and compartmentalize it. So one day when I'm sitting on the couch with Dr. Melfi, I can unpack all of those emotions and try to navigate exactly what and why I'm feeling and why I kicked the dog that one time. It's like, why'd you kick the dog? It's like, well, the 23-24 team was really fucking weird, and I never truly processed those emotions, and I'm just now doing that, and I'm sorry, Lainey, I didn't mean to kick you, but you were in the way, and you were barking, and you're deaf, and you couldn't hear how loud you were barking, and there was no one at the door. So I'm just kidding, everybody. That did not happen. I love my dog. So, but essentially what I'm saying is I'm over that. I'm already looking at next season tentatively. There's obviously some things that we're going to talk about as it pertains to the Suns, as they kind of had some conversations at the end of the season, the rumors that are beginning, and throughout this offseason as we get ready for the NBA draft, as we get ready for the NBA free agency period, as we prepare for the Paris Olympics that's going to have 2 members of our team playing for the United States, as we prepare for the preseason, summer training camps, or summer league, summer training camp, and the eventual season. It's all going to go by quick, and it's all going to go by very slow at the same time, and I'm okay with that. I think that's where I'm at right now. I'm looking forward to, as Gavin mentioned, not being stressed out about this team, not being frustrated about this team. I'm looking forward to having fun around the Phoenix Suns again. And again, that's why I kind of prefaced an article that's going to be coming out tomorrow on Bright Side of the Sun, and something that we will talk about on the podcast next week. Some of those fun things that I'm talking about, fun scenarios, because that's the fun and creative part of what lies ahead for us as Suns fans. We're going to try to fix it. Right? Like, we're going to sit around and come up with dumb scenarios and try to fix and play the what if game way too hard and all that fun stuff. It's just part of the process of getting through the off season. But I'm excited to have the off season here because, as you mentioned, Matthew, you watch these other basketball teams. Like right now, the Knicks are playing the Sixers, and I don't have it up in front of me right now.
Yeah, it's over there to the left of me.
Oh, what's the score?
It's 98-95 Knicks.
Okay, so I'm going to definitely put that on playback, and while you're talking, I'll be watching it on my other screen because it's fun, exciting, engaging basketball. Yeah. It's connected basketball. Do they make errors? Yes. Are their fan bases going nuts about those errors? Yes. Is Tyrese Maxey hitting a logo shot just to force a game 6 in the last? Yes. It's all these things that are happening, and you realize in those moments, this Suns team didn't have it as much as we wanted them to. As much as we hoped at the end of the season, we knew at the end of the season this team didn't have it. We knew it. There's a ton of reasons why, but we knew it, and we hoped that it wouldn't happen. And as Eric says in the chat, Suns in 4 losses. That's exactly what happened. So it's like, you know what? So be it. Que sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be. This wasn't the team. We can talk about next season, I guess.
Yeah, we treat it as it was like just so connected to this team where it just hurts us so badly. We don't want them to be so embarrassed. We want a new owner to come in here and kind of destroy things. And like, where do we go from here? We don't want to be the laughing stock, but we are once again. And that's what we all feared. Like the sweep was terrible. Towards the end of the season, we kind of saw a little bit of glimmer. And even in game 4, I was like, come on, let's just get one game. Maybe we can win game 7. That's just the way I am. I'm just very optimistic in that way where I just truly believe in this team, even though I talk a lot of shit. But it is hard to see the team in the way they are now. Media point of view, they are just a laughing stock. Like I mentioned, like it's hard to listen to podcasts, even though I will. It's hard to watch. I don't watch ESPN, but anything Suns wise, it's going to be about this team just making mistakes. That trade with KD, getting Bradley Beal, that, you know, everyone knows it as Suns fans, what kind of mess we're in. Now it's just about the team turning around, trying to find a way out of it or just keep this core. But we'll talk about that. I don't know. It's painful for that reason. The losses suck, but it's painful just about the future.
Well, and speaking of the future, Matt Ishbia and James Jones were at Footprint Center yesterday having their end of season podcast pressers. They were doing a podcast. It's the James and Ishbia show, the MJ, Matt and Ishbia.
That'd be good. They don't ever talk courtside. I never see them talking courtside ever.
Yeah,
like,
you really
it's
don't.
Burlestein or whatever. Yeah, like I was sitting courtside and was behind the basket where the Suns were practicing, and I looked up. I'm like, who are those tiny butts? I'm like, oh yeah, it's Ishbia and Burlestein, like tiny butt. And I was like, they're always together talking, but you never see James Jones. So, but
I don't know if I could listen to a podcast if Matt Ishbia was the host.
Yeah, it's too crazy, too everywhere.
It would be all over the place and nonstop. Yeah, he couldn't. It'd be time to read ads, and he couldn't take a breath to allow an opportunity for somebody to cut in there and be like, and this is brought to you by MeUndies. So this is brought to you by Homage. That's where I got this nice shirt, this nice Phoenix Sun shirt. Check it out. I'll put a link in the description to our Homage page. But talking about, let's start. The future. The big question that everybody kind of had was around Frank Vogel. Is Frank Vogel staying? Is Frank Vogel going? Is he the one who's going to be the sacrificial lamb for this team? This is what James Jones had to say about his thoughts on Frank Vogel this season.
I thought Frank did a great job, given the circumstances. We assembled a really talented team, guys from, primarily 3 scorers. And whenever you're trying to get guys to adjust and adapt their games, there's a transition time. It's sometimes a struggle, but I thought he did a great job this year. If you look at our record, Matt talked about it, 49 wins compared to mid-40s last year. It was a tough grind with the lack of continuity and health, but we won 49 games, and we were in the playoffs against a really good Minnesota team that just was a better team than us. So I thought he did a tremendous job. I thought the staff did a great job. I thought the players did a really good job, just not good enough to reach our goals.
I think Matthew did a good job. I think that Bartelstein's little butt did a good job, and his nice shoes did a good job. What? I like what Mark Brooks says in the chat. He goes, "Is James Jones drunk or terrible at evaluating things?"
Oh,
like what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go ahead.
No, just it's tough to say. Like I said, like they don't seem like they talk. They don't seem like they get along. I mean, they're never in the same room. You never see them backstage ever together because you see HB a lot, you see Bartelstein a lot, and those two are usually together or they're separated. But at the most of the time when I see them, they're together. So I just think it's kind of interesting to say that with these guys transitioning into kind of a different kind of player, that's tough to take because obviously these players must know, like if Frank's coming here, that they're going to have to transition into something else. Like they're going to have to, they're going to change their game a little bit, right? Book and Bradley Beal have to kind of, be the point guard for this team in certain situations. That's a big change for those guys who definitely are not. We found that out, obviously. So I think it's hard to say that and to say that he did a good job, but then it does kind of make sense because if he did do a good job, then the 49 wins with a team that didn't really want him to be the coach, that's pretty fucking good, I guess. If you can get 49 wins out of them with Bradley Beal not playing most of the season, then I guess it's pretty fucking good. And then just kind of giving up on you in the playoffs to hurry up and go to Cancun. But it's interesting because I just feel like James Jones and Ishbia are just two separate entities right now. They're not together. Obviously, when Ishbia was here, he did make that big trade. It was not James. I bet you it was not James Jones bringing Kevin Durant here. So those two getting along, if James Jones even comes back, then it'll be interesting in the future.
Yeah, I mean, when Jones is providing that feedback on Frank Vogel, you know that you're going to get the vanilla answers anywhere you go. This isn't just special to Phoenix. Whatever answers are going to be provided are going to be as non-confrontational as possible. And that's what that was. I think Frank did a great job. Are you high? You could sit here and say, like, yeah, he did an acceptable job. Like an acceptable would have been a good phrase right there, right? He did an acceptable job, and then go into all of the different factors that were playing against them and whatnot, and utilize something along the phrase or along the phraseology that, this was a 2-year plan was always the vision for this team. And we didn't hit our goals in this one, and winning a playoff game would have been part of our goals. We didn't even do that. But at the same time, we're looking at this in a 2-year window. So this is a good opportunity to evaluate where we're at and then move forward. And Jones didn't do any of that. He was just like, he did great, everything considered. It's like everything considered. I don't have the clip, but it's something that Ishbia said. He's like, listen, because that was the first question out of the box. And I forget who asked it. It might have been Dwayne Rankin. It might have been Gerald Bourguet. It might have been Cameron Cox from 12 News. But they asked, the first question of Ishbia was like, so what's the status of Frank Vogel? He's like, listen, I haven't talked to anybody yet. I just got off the plane. I'm here the next 3 days to evaluate and to talk about all the things that happen. So Frank's still up in the air. We could be doing this podcast this time next week, and Frank Vogel will have been fired or been fortified as the head coach of this team. We just don't know, which to me is a little weird. But hearing that Frank Vogel is doing a great job is weird to me. So I'll ask you this question, Matthew. Should Frank Vogel retain his job, in your opinion, moving forward into next year?
For this team right now, no. I think you have to go a different way. There's only one name I would think is Tyronn Lue or Ty Lue for short Ty Lue from the
Ooh.
Clippers. If they were to exit tomorrow night, let's just say they're losing 6 games, Ty Lue's the name you go after. Maybe that's what they're waiting for, to feel the waters with him. He's a good player's coach. He's a good guy that can make adjustments. He would fit well with the team. If you're going to go with Frank Vogel still, there has to be some roster moves because obviously this is not going to work with his style of play. He's obviously, so this thing will have to go one or two ways. Either you get rid of some of these players or you get rid of Frank, keep the players and get a new coach. So I don't see it going the way of where Frank stays. I really don't. Obviously, they're going to say in the press conference, just like all year long with Frank Vogel, said whatever he wanted to say, and none of it really came true. And he was a very positive guy, tried to keep the momentum going with the team. A few times had a few little blowups with the media, but overall he kept it positive and trying to just influence us in the way to where we can believe in this team, and hopefully that they would believe too. But you just see this team kind of just went the other way. There wasn't a whole lot of backing Frank Vogel. I know Beal did say he's a great coach. I like Frank Vogel, but even having Monty here, like everyone always praised Monty all the fucking time. You never heard anything about Frank.
This is true, and it's a tough scenario, as you mentioned, because you can do whatever you want if you're James Jones and Matt Ishbia, but from my perception, you can't just come in and fire Frank right off the bat with no strategic plan in place. And as you mentioned, part of that strategic plan could be, well, let's wait and see how the playoffs go, because let's say that the Clippers do lose in the first round, right? They're down 3-2 to the Dallas Mavericks right now. They don't make it out of the first round. Maybe Matthew won't drop things, and maybe they will decide that with Ty Lue, who's been given this talent over this many seasons, to not make a finals appearance in only one Western Conference Finals with the Los Angeles Clippers is not the direction they want to go. And I also think that this is true of the Los Angeles Lakers with Darvin Ham. I think both of them, both the Lakers and the Suns, are in this holding pattern because they want to see what happens with that series, because Ty Lue would be a coveted prize for both organizations, because both are kind of in this place where, well, we have a coach, we have superstar players on our team, but we don't know if we want to continue in this direction unless we have a solid game plan out on the other side of this. And I agree with Gavin from Aussie Suns fans. No way they move on from Lue. I don't think it's happening. If you were to look at what other coaches are available out there, you have Mike Budenholzer, Terry Stotts, who I kind of like, Mark Jackson, Kenny Atkinson, Nate McMillan, Becky Hammond, both Stan and Jeff Van Gundy, good old Mike D'Antoni, Dwayne Casey, Steven I Never Smile Silas, James Borrego, JJ Redick. I mean, so there are options out there. Are any of those names hit the ear just right to where you're like, yes, move on from Frank and for that guy instantly? Or is it like, if we move on from Frank, I guess this guy will do?
So here we go. Aussie Suns fan Gavin, JJ Redick, that's the name, right? That's the big name I feel like this summer for a lot of teams to get. And it kind of reminds me, KD in Brooklyn, right? He gets Steve Nash to come. It wasn't really a big, I don't know if he really pleased the Nets fans if they have any, but he was a guy that just kind of was looked down upon as being the head coach there in the NBA and given the chance. JJ Redick, obviously, I feel like is a tier above, maybe a couple tiers above what Steve Nash was coming into the league as a coach.
Agreed.
But I like the name as JJ. I like Budenholzer. I do. The thing is like, I kind of look at the Mavericks and the way they were kind of handled with Jason Kidd. Like Jason Kidd was on his way out last year too. Yeah. And they got Kyrie the same time the Suns got, they got Kyrie last year. It did not work out. They did not make the playoffs, and they come back this year. It took them a while to gel. Now, towards the end of the year, this last season, the last maybe few months, the defense got better. They looked really good. They're going to make it to the Western Conference, or to the second round at least, and they have a good chance of being the Thunder to Western Conference Finals again. So the thing is like, if you want to maybe just wait this out one more year, we might have to make another change. I know it's painful, but it just makes sense because there's so many teams, even Budenholzer do with the Bucks. Like, he's going to be fired that series before he went to go win the finals. So every coach I feel like is going to be fired until they turn it around. So if they want to get him a chance, I say just one more year. That's if they give him another chance. It just have to be the 1 year.
Yeah, I agree. And, the knee-jerk reaction across the fan base is fire Vogel. And at this point, I'm not going to tell anybody that, that's a wrong idea. I'm not, because it's, you feel how you feel if in your fantasy world and how you want to fix the team. In my fantasy world, how I want to fix the team, I say you stick with it. I say you run it back with the same coach and hope that the issues that were put forth by Shams Charania and Doug Haller of The Athletic were more surface level than deep rooted, and that Frank is the guy, and you put better assistant coaches around him. Because guess what? Kevin Young's going to be gone this year. He's at BYU. Now, granted, there were some backdoor comments about Kevin Young being looking forward to going to BYU because he can focus on attacking the interior at the rim and being a three-point shooting team, and he just couldn't do that with this Suns team because their talent is very mid-range heavy. And so whoever you bring in is going to have the ability to navigate that and to incorporate Kevin Durant a little bit more and things of that nature. So it's going to be interesting. But I'll tell you this as well. I think that if they do move on from Frank Vogel, I wouldn't be opposed to that either. And I think that that's kind of the funny place where I'm at least as a fan.
Yeah, and then you got Mike D'Antoni too. That's coming back. So I was actually thinking too. I think I texted you. I'm like, the Suns team's built on Twitter. It's built from Twitter.
Yes.
Whatever.
Yes.
I mean, even Ishbia talked about, he read Gerald Bourguet's article about our draft picks and what we still have moving forward. So it just shows how involved he is with everything that's outside. A lot of coaches would not pay attention, I feel like, to that shit, would not read articles, just kind of be over. A lot of owners. But reads. I mean, maybe Cuban does too. But yeah, he's very involved on social media. And I feel like if the fans want Mike D'Antoni, and let's just say they want like a Trae Young somehow, I'm just saying, like, any kind of player they want, just throw it out there. We might get them. You never know.
You never know. And JJ Redick, again, I'll talk about that real quick because Ozzy's talks about it and you talked about it. I like the idea of JJ Redick. It's an idea. It's definitely a tier or two above Steve Nash. I feel like he's a much more vocal and analytical person. Obviously, having the Old Man in the Three podcast, he's somebody who has some street cred, if you will, probably more street cred than Steve Nash had. But it would be an eerily similar situation to what occurred in Brooklyn. So we'll see what happens there. In the eyes of the owner, though, the Suns everything's good.
Oh, it's extremely fixable. I mean, let's just be real. Although this isn't a cool narrative, and the national media really won't want to play it out there, but like, ask the other 29 GMs. 26 of them would trade their whole team for our whole team and our draft picks and everything as is. Like, the house is not on fire. We're in great position. It's not hard to fix. It's not like we're like, hey, we don't have enough talent to win a championship. We have enough talent to win a championship, right? Do we have enough continuity? Do we have time together? Like, there's a lot of things we can look at. Do we have like the right leadership in place? Do we have to add some little pieces around that? It's not like we don't have people that can score the ball, not that play defense and have one champ. Like, we have all the things. And so how fixable is it? And I mean, if I read the media, I would think we have a lot of problems. But luckily, I get to spend time with, the best players in the world, in my opinion, the best coaches, GMs, see, like, all these people, and I get to spend time with our people and say, we're in really great shape, and I wouldn't trade our team or our situation for anyone else's, except for I'd like to be playing right now. But besides that, for like how going into the offseason, I feel great about it. It's not like there's a lot of other teams that have good players that have to re-sign them or they're going to lose them or that they're unrestricted free agents. Like, our starting five's coming back. I feel very good about it.
So Ishbia feels good. Our starting five is coming back. What are your thoughts on those comments there, Matthew?
It's tempting to kind of believe, right? He can kind of get you pumped up a little bit, but also I just don't want it to happen as much. The whole thing with the 26 teams wanting our roster, I don't know if 26 teams is correct. Maybe 20, maybe about 22 or so, but 26 is kind of a stretch. But you know what? If you do look at the roster like we did in the beginning of the season, thinking that we're going to be unstoppable, then yeah, because we did think that, especially with Eric Gordon being our sixth man, like, we were fucking excited about that guy being in the death five, whatever they're calling them. So I want to get pumped up. I want to be ready for next season. I want to know that we're in the right position. It's so hard to envision that after just seeing the disgrace in the court, just ending the season in the playoffs. Like, I just envision Beal just being like, I don't give a fuck. And then Booker just like not saying shit and look like he was going to cry. And then KD just not giving a fuck. So I envision that with this roster now that I've seen it on the court. So that kind of destroys it for me moving forward until I see them kind of just come back and shove it back in my face and just be like, hey, we were actually this good. We just need that continuity we always talk about on the pod.
Yeah, it's the challenge is we just digested an entire season of this team, and not one game did I feel like they put together a complete 4 quarters. And you are telling me that the members of this team can score the bowel and that they shouldn't have any issues. They definitely have issues on the fringes, which is what he's referencing, but this is going to be something that somehow will be fixed this offseason. I'm not sure. I'm just not sure. It's perhaps too soon, but I do agree with the fact that you do have your starting five locked up next season already is an enticing thing, because you think back to the team that went to the finals, right? That same starting five came back the next year and won 64 games. There was more continuity there. There was more implementation and organic chemistry that was developed around those guys because they had spent some time together. They were utterly embarrassed if they have any pride, which again is a challenge. We don't know if they have any pride, but if they have any thing, that's the thing. This isn't a team that I was having a conversation with somebody today about Anthony Edwards and how I absolutely loved watching Anthony Edwards. We were blessed enough. I think I saw him 3 times in person this year, and he's amazing to watch in person. And he is, when we do our jammies at the beginning of next season, he is going to be the guy who is my favorite player who's not a member of the Phoenix Suns. I love Anthony Edwards. And part of the reason I love him is he possesses a lot of the qualities that the Suns don't.
Yes.
That competitiveness, that fire, that ability to talk some shit. And that goes back to the movie Hustle. If you ever seen the movie Hustle with Adam Sandler, and Anthony Edwards is like the opposing player, he's a great actor in that movie, but he possesses so many intangible things that this Phoenix Suns team just didn't have this year. And that's the worry. When Matt Ishbia sits there and says, hey, we need some continuity, but there's a bunch of other teams that would trade anything to have our roster and our draft picks moving forward. A, I don't know if that's true, but B, again, you can't tell me what I saw in this season was just a lack of continuity. There was something more deep-rooted in that. There was something with the competitive nature and the fire of the players that you have rostered that was troublesome. And if they go on some meditation, if they become like the Beatles and they're hanging out with the Maharishi and recording the White Album this summer, then hell yeah, let's do it. Go drop some LSD in the fucking Himalayas and come back a connected team that gives 2 shits. So that's where there's a challenge where I do like the fact that in the short term, yes, we have our starting 5. That's a good place to be. That's a great place to be as an organization. But is the starting 5 the right starting 5? That's the challenge, and that's what we're going to be playing with throughout this offseason when we talk about whether or not certain assets should remain on, or should we trade Kevin Durant, or what additions and subtractions that can be made, whether they're on the fringes or if they're by the main players.
Yeah, we don't have that guy. I mean, I think Booker, you can see how good he is, right? Is he short of a superstar? Probably. I think he's a guy that you have to double think about building your team around, right? The whole thing is him going to the Knicks is a play next to Brunson, a guy that can run a team. Obviously, he's a guard, but you want that guy that can handle the ball, that can be a point guard, that can just make sure that he can fuck shit up. Because right now, the way the Suns have ended the last 3 seasons, or the last 2 seasons, 3, they're just so mindful.
56.
56 seasons?
Yeah, they've never won a championship in 56 seasons.
Yeah. Well, I just mean like with this team at the core with Devin Booker at the helm, like he's just so mind fucked. And then can they get over that? So you have to worry about that now. Just like you just got swept to the Wolves from the playing the Wolves in the first round. You got swept. Now next season, is that going to linger? Is it going to be something where you hit the playoffs again? And let's say you're a top 2 seed or top 3 seed. Can you get over that? Can you escape that? What if you play a team that's just on fire, that just barely made the playoffs, came in the play-in, and just there? Can you get over that? So that's another thing to fear. And if we just don't have that guy, like you said, we're trying to build this monster to really kind of compete with these other teams that have that one true legit killer. And we don't have that. Booker, I feel like he's close to it, but I hope this would be his breakthrough season. He just had the one good game, man. That's really scary to me, man. To have 3 pretty shit games in the first 3 games, that's pretty hard to overlook if this is the guy you want to build around. Now, I'm not saying to trade him. I'm not going to trade rant. I'm just saying it's kind of heartbreaking the way to where I believed in this guy so much. Not heartbreaking, but it's annoying. It's annoying. It's not heartbreaking. But to go into the season and you're just like, all right, he's going to take the next step. He's going to be that leader. He's going to be more of a guard. He's going to lead this team. And then you see what the hell we did. Unless they were just giving up on Vogel, it's hard to just not think about the going to the next season. It's like, okay, is this the guy? I don't know. I don't know if he is.
And again, these are the things that we will be contemplating throughout this entire offseason and asking, especially as the playoffs progress, right? As the playoffs progress, we're going to wonder whether or not this team has the fire and the grit. And as we see other teams have players like Josh Hart, who just knocked down a 3-pointer to put the Knicks up 114-111 and potentially close out the Philadelphia 76ers on their home court. Do we have guys with that kind of fight in them? So you look at that side of things. And then, of course, you look at the fact that this team didn't have a point guard. And I think that there were some interesting comments on that as well.
Matt, Cameron Cox, 12 News. Just want to give you another opportunity to clear up something else that was out there. It was reported that Frank Vogel wanted a point guard on this team and the front office did not. Is that true? And then do you think this team needs a point guard, true point guard, going forward?
Yeah, so, well, first, I'm a point guard. They didn't want to sign me. I'm not good enough. And so the truth is this. Like, those decisions, one thing I love about James Jones and our organization is James, Frank, players, everyone talks about these things. And whether you need a point guard, whether you don't need a point guard, I think, there's a lot of different discussions. There's two smart people and both can go different ways. I don't know if that report is correct, by the way, whether Frank thought that or James thought that or vice versa. But we make a decision as a team, and I think the way we went with it, and James can go through more details on it, but, most people will argue, and I think James and Frank and everyone agreed this, that you want the ball in those three guys' hands the much as possible. And if you have a point guard or someone else out there, the ball's in their hands less. And you have to decide, is that what you want? And if you're the other team, what do you want? You probably want the ball in someone else's hands. And so those are decisions that I'm sure James can get more deep.
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. And if that's the case for not having a point guard, it's fucking stupid.
Yeah, well, we found out definitely these guys need someone to move the ball, to run the offense, because they're the same dudes, man. Like, Beal and Book are the same guy, and KD is just a taller version of them. I mean, obviously he can rebound, play better defense at times, but it's tough to oh, thank you. This is awesome right here, right? Sorry, it's hard to multitask and watch this.
I'm showing the end of the Knicks in the
you gotta watch this.
Yeah.
Oh my god, what the fuck?
There was a foul.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so it's 114, 113. Real quick, I didn't mean to cut you off, and for that I apologize. And I did see a comment in the chat from Aussie Suns fans. He goes, "Hey, are you guys going to do playback for some of the other games, some of the other postseason games?" I guarantee you we will at some point.
Yeah, I think so. It's just like, I think the thing is like, we don't have the podcast now. Yeah, so it's kind of nice to kind of free roam when you want to.
We're taking a couple weeks off, but as the finals gets near, we might do some like watch parties with Suns fans.
If it's like the Mavericks Clippers game 7, I'll definitely pop on Sunday for that.
There you go.
If that's Sunday,
But yeah, going back to not having a point guard and that being the right solution. Thoughts?
Yeah, so I was just saying that this team definitely needed it, but the fact that we didn't get one, whose fault it is, it doesn't fucking matter. If the front office and the coaching staff, if this is just already in one season, if this is really a thing, because usually stuff that's leaked, there's a little bit of truth to it, then there's problems up and down with this fucking team. And I know we're going to get to it later with the Looney Tunes thing. Then it's like, we can't start off this way, man. Like, HB has done everything so perfect for this team. And of course, losing sucks. But when it comes to the team building and stuff, like, you might have to leave it to somebody else, right? You might have to admit that. You have to admit your faults. And he does do that at times. But you have guys on the court that are the exact same. So if you want more ball movement, you want some more motherfuckers, these other guys are not going to be that. They're just going to be the scorers. So you just probably need one of those guys.
Yeah,
I don't know.
No, well, I would think so. And real quick, we're just we're tuning in. Oh, they're fouling because they're down 3. We're tuning into the Knicks and Philly. New York's up by 3 points with 10 seconds.
Oh, did they
left.
miss?
No, they hit both of their their free throws. Dante DiVincenzo hit both of his free throws, but they're fouling Maxey with being down 3 because he just hit they didn't foul him in the last game, and guess what happened? He hit that long 3. So
what up, Kelly Oubre, huh? Playing some really good ball. He's playing,
dude, and fucking Cameron Payne. Cameron Payne's been fucking killing it in that series, man.
I know.
Hearing Bill Simmons talk about how great Cameron Payne's been playing, I'm like, dude, you fucking dog that guy every second you could.
What's funny is he that whole Shamet thing really held up good too. So.
Yeah, it actually played in his favor. We're having Bill Shamet. Real quick on Bill Simmons, just to complain to you. No one else is watching or listening, so we can do this. Did you listen to the podcast today?
I did halfway through.
Okay, so did you like how he brought a guest on? He's like, tell me who your 3 surprise teams are in the NFL. Because he wanted the guy to talk about the fucking Patriots.
Oh, is that what he brought him on? Okay, so it was the Timberwolves guy because I listened to it.
Yes.
And they were talking about the Timberwolves, and then it went somewhere else with the football. I'm like, I don't care about football right now.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm done. If you're just gonna talk about football quarterbacks, I didn't even look at the draft really, so not yet. So
no, but that's all he does. He's like, I just want to put you in a situation to come on my show and tell me about
talk about
May.
the quarterback they got.
Yeah.
Okay,
The older I get, the more he gets on my nerves. Anyways,
I do like it when he talks to his dad, though. So
I do, and that's at the end of this podcast, so it's pretty good. But I will say that the point guard thing doesn't make sense to me. Everybody knows now that we needed a point guard. If there is any merit to any of the things that Cameron Cox from Channel 12 was mentioning, that there's reports that Frank Vogel wanted a point guard and Suns brass didn't, and of course Ishbia is playing deny. If there's any merit to any of that, then it's unfortunate, and again, it's something that can't necessarily be fixed. So we are going to go back real quick over to that game. They're probably going to foul them again after making 2 free throws. Brunson made 2 free throws, so the 118 to 115. They're going to foul him again. They should foul him. Oh, it's almost stolen. So now there's 3.7 seconds left in the game. No timeouts. Philly's out of timeouts. If they make a 3, they send it to overtime, and their season continues. If they do not make a 3, New York wins. Well, what they're going to do is they're going to throw it in and they're going to foul. They're going to throw it in and they're going to foul. It's exactly what they should do. There's 3.7 seconds
they got to
left.
throw it in the front court and then just jack it up.
Oh, here we go. Buddy Hield. Oh, he just threw it up. Oh, that's it. New York wins.
Well, I think because he thought he might be fouled too.
New York. Oh, they're waving goodbye. New York is playing the Pacers, I believe.
Yeah, isn't it? I mean, I don't want to see the Bucks in the way they are, but like the Pacers, I guess. I don't know. That just sucks.
Pacers and the Knicks, man, though. That's like some late 90s Reggie Miller in the guard. It's going to be great.
Team, though, yeah. You know what I mean? I mean,
yeah, but it's fine. We don't need to see the old broken Bucks. Like, fuck it. Let's watch.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Former players. Like, Jalen Smith is out there. Tyrese Halliburton, we could have had him. Obi Toppin, I wanted him so bad.
Everyone we should have drafted.
Everyone we should have drafted is still out there playing. And the Suns got James
Everyone
Jones.
We let go. Everyone we fucking traded.
The Suns got James Jones talking about how we don't give a shit about draft.
I mean, we're starting from a place of having a very good core of players, and we have the assets necessary to continue to use those assets to acquire players, right? And I said, going into this offseason, we have everything that we need to be able to add the players or the positions that will make us better.
Horseshit.
I'm not thinking about 2031. Like Matt said it before.
I'm thinking about a point guard, motherfucker.
7th grader in 2031. We're talking about elite players who want to win, saying, how can we win today? How can we win tomorrow? How can we win the next 12 months? Devin's not thinking about 2031. Kevin's not thinking about 2031. Brad, Grayson, Royce, Eric Gordon. None of our guys are thinking about 2031. They're thinking about, we fell short of our goal this season. How do we run it back? How do we get better? How do we improve? How do we use all of our resources, all of our assets, all of our energy, our time? How do we invest those the right way so that we don't have this result again next summer?
So here's where I'll go first on this one. This is very narrow-sighted and frustrating as a Suns fan, because what that's saying is, do you know who else doesn't care about 2031? James Jones, because he won't be with the organization 7 years from now. So he doesn't give a shit. Mortgage the future. It doesn't matter. And I get it. I get what he's saying. I get the premise of what he's saying. We don't care about the 7th grader right now, who in 2031 will be somebody who is going to be a great draft pick and we could add to this organization. But at the same time, you need draft picks in an effort to sweeten the pot to acquire certain players if you want to make trades and things of that happen. Now, granted, seen as they're a second apron team, they've cut their legs off all the way up to their thighs. I think they took out a left nut at the same time so they can't do anything on the trade market. They really can't. Everything has to be done via free agency at pretty much veteran minimum contracts. That's the grave that they've dug for themselves. They're trying to justify it. And he's saying, well, we're doing everything we can with the assets available. You can't add everything because you don't have the assets, because you're so overly taxed as a team. You're trying to maximize what you have, but ultimately you're a victim of your own greed for the short term versus the long term. And it's a delicate balance. that you have to do. And this isn't just in basketball. This is in everybody's personal life and in your professional life, whoever you are watching or listening to this podcast. You always have to weigh your short-term greed versus your long-term greed. If you've ever read anything that I've ever written, I mention this a lot. It's a philosophy that's been instilled from me from actually one of my old general managers who I just found out today is retiring. So Scott Caldwell, congratulations. I know he's retiring in a few months. But one of the things that he used to always say is, like, you can't let your short-term greed get in the way of your long-term greed. What that means is you can't cut off your legs and your left nut just because you want to win right now. You also have to have the ability to set yourself up in the future. So if it doesn't work out, you're still secure and you have enough assets to make it happen. Now, granted, people will say, well, you have Devin Booker, you have Kevin Durant. Those are assets that you can dish out and gain more assets back. But there's got to be a lot more strategic thinking. And that's what I think a lot of us as fans are frustrated with, is the lack of strategery that this team and this franchise and organization has operated with, because they have leveraged their future. And I know that they jokingly say, well, everyone says we don't have any draft picks. We have 5 draft picks and we can trade 2 more in a month and this and that and the other. And I get that. But at the same time, we don't have any draft picks of value. We're not going to get the next Anthony Edwards. We're not going to get the next Devin Booker, because we won't have the ability to draft in those scenarios, because we're pick swapped all the way until that 7th grader would be worth drafting.
Whew, yeah.
Motherfuckers.
Put it that way. I'm very excited for next season. Well, I mean, if you want to get anything back, it's going to have to be a guy like Devin Booker that you do trade away. It's not a guy like Kevin Durant. I don't feel like Kevin Durant or Bradley Beal. You can't get anything. I don't think anybody even wants those guys right now. I know obviously Kevin Durant's still awesome, and if you unlock him, like he wants to be a butterfly, he's a caterpillar right now, I guess. It's the way James Jones kind of phrased it, where you got to unlock him to be the best. He's the best player on your team. But I understand how good he is, but he's not that guy to really lead your team or be that guy. So the Suns have to give up Booker 4 picks and like some other side guys, so they'll never get another guy in return like a Brunson type tonight, or like even a Maxey or any of those kind of players that can really lead your team to the next level. So we would lose the fan base. The fan base would just be done. I mean, if Booker were to ever go in the next 2 years, I'm pretty sure that we lose him unless we got something back in return, unless Booker was just god awful next year or something. But the way to save this team really is just to go through 1 year at a time and just admit that, like, you can't make any moves and try to live through and just hope to God this team pulls through, and hope to God there's some injuries in the playoffs to where they can maybe pull off a title run again, or finish it off this time, because there's nothing else. Like you said, there's nothing else out there to do. No more draft picks. That kind of made me sad, man. No more drafting players to be excited about. I miss that.
Well, we do have the 22nd pick this year. So, and there are, so I mean, we will definitely, we'll see. Bronny James isn't even on ESPN's top 100. But there will be things that we talk about relative to the draft, because this is a draft pick, and this draft pick does matter to the Suns because it's money that you can bring in that is going to be on a rookie contract. Like, that means a lot. And maybe you can get lucky at the 22nd pick and get somebody who is a need for this organization. So he's talking about those kind of things. And one of the things that I thought was kind of funny was he's like, Devin Booker's not thinking about 2031. Royce O'Neal's not thinking about 2031. Eric Gordon's not thinking about 2031. One of the rumors that John Gambadoro mentioned on Arizona Sports Radio 98.7 was that both Eric Gordon and Drew Eubanks are going to be gone next year. So thinking about that, it could be the last time. It probably won't be, but just in case.
From Indiana University, number 23, Eric Gordon.
Who I never changed to Suns
I know.
highlights.
I was just laughing so hard. I wish I had my mic
highlights.
on. I had a little high screeched woman laugh, dude. I was like, oh my God, it's still not changed.
It's still not changed. If he survives the next season, he will get changed to Suns highlights like Drew Eubanks.
Big Crank Eubanks.
Crank that soul. Now I mean you. Crank that soul. Now I mean you. Crank that soul. Now I mean you. Crank that soul. Now what?
So if we lose both Eubanks and Eric Gordon, what are your thoughts on that?
No thoughts, really. I mean, they're probably the most incompetent players we had on the court. They drove me nuts more than ever. So I'm excited to see them leave. And they're just going to be replaced with more Eric Gordons and more Drew Eubanks. So That's what we're going to get back. Because we do this every year, every offseason, where we get these guys like this that we're excited about. And Eric Gordon is probably one of our better 6-man candidate kind of guys to pick up in free agency in the past forever. I feel like he's, and besides Jay Crowder, of course, I think what he brought to this team was the shooting and the electricity that he can just fill the stat sheet with those threes. And it just never happened, man. A few games here and there, yes, but to see how incompetent he was at times kind of drove me nuts. He played a little bit better in the playoffs, had some good games, but during the regular season, man, he was hit or miss. Eubanks, he was just god awful. Didn't even play the last game of the year. Didn't even play the last playoff game.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to miss either of them. To be honest, Jeremy in the chat says EG was such a disappointment, and I agree with that. Unbelievably, Airball Gordon from Eddie Yee in the chat. Yeah, those are two players that I just don't know that we're necessarily going to miss, and what they provided is definitely replicable. I think that that's an important understanding, and probably better at whoever we bring in is better at that position. Eric Gordon averaged 11 points, which is what he averaged last year when he was with the Lakers, not with the Houston Rockets. But 37.8% from beyond the arc, 27.8 minutes played, just didn't really seem to affect enough games for us. And that's just unfortunate. Drew Eubanks, as you mentioned, by the end of the season, we're like, how and why is this guy getting minutes? It's because we had no true depth behind him. And even the depth that we did have behind him, it's like the team wasn't willing to give that depth a try in Thaddeus Young. So Sarah, whatever will be, goodbye, all that stuff. It's going to happen. There's going to be multiple players who are not going to be back as a part of this team. I'm interested to see what they do with Bol. In all honesty, I kind of feel like because of the impact that he had and the growth that he had next to Kevin Durant, they might keep him. But I think he has a player option, and he might be one of those players who's like, you know what, I'm just gonna go out there and test it.
Yeah, I would if I were him, because no respect, man. I mean, obviously going into the playoffs, I was one of the guys that said, you know what, I didn't see anything towards the end of the season where he would earn any playoff minutes.
Yeah,
he didn't play till game 3, which were explosive 5 minutes, and he was never returned again. So that was frustrating for me, just because I would keep seeing that little bit of explosiveness and it would just go away. I'm like, oh, you're a little triumph, and then he would just disappear, and I was very sad. So Frank kept teasing me all season and even in the playoffs for one time.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens with the rest of the roster. Last thing I want to talk about before we get out of here, there was a report. I don't know how much stock I want to give to it, but there was a report saying essentially that, it's like Looney Tunes around here since Ishbia took ownership. The report comes from HoopsWire, which is kind of one of those things where with HoopsWire, sometimes there's some things that are just you can't always trust. But one of the sources told him it's felt unstable since Ishbia arrived. He's a good guy and everything, but I think he's just very involved, too involved. I know he played basketball at Michigan State, but I'd venture to say that he has no idea what he's doing when it comes to basketball, yet he's making a lot of the big decisions. So what are your thoughts on those comments? Obviously there's been the rumors that Frank Vogel wanted a point guard and management didn't, that Looney Tunes and the Athletic thing. I mean, once the season ended, it's been kind of this opening of Pandora's box, and the Suns the whole time are like, we are going to remain stable. We will run it back. Is it plausible if these kind of things are out there, or is it just like, is it going to make them internalize it more and go into an us versus the world kind of mentality?
Well, you remember like at the beginning of the season, maybe it was a couple months in, where that thing linked with Kevin Durant, kind of being frustrated with who was surrounding him with the depth that the Suns had. Of course, he took to Twitter saying that it wasn't true and that we believe everything everybody else says. But then this stuff is leaked like right after the season ends. It was kind of like, what was leaked for the Lakers? I forget what was leaked. So there was something leaked right after the Lakers lost.
Well, it was just LeBron just going, they're like, well, was this your last game playing here? And he's just like, I'm not going to answer that. And he's just like, he mic
there was some article. Wasn't there like another article from another team that like lost instantly? I forget. But in
the past?
No, just this season. Like the Suns, right after they lost, the Athletic leaked that, and then that Looney Tunes thing came out like the same night too, didn't it? Or that morning. So stuff like that, of course, people probably just do it for clicks. But it's just weird because when the Suns were playing so fucking good, obviously, and they had that season, that 64-win season, they went to the finals. nothing's leaked. And then the next following offseason, after the 64 and the blowout loss, you had like the Jay Crowder stuff leak and all this other shit, and all that stuff was true, right? Jay didn't want to be there. He didn't want to be in the plans of the future of the Suns. And I don't want to say it's ever true, but there's always a little bit of truth to it. Like there is, and it's just that's the way we are now. You have these superstars that are going to run the team, and things are going to leak to get to what they want. No matter what they say, a lot of this stuff happens because of them. I believe it, but I'm probably wrong. But
no, it's a player-driven league, 100%. And my guess is a lot of this kind of stuff is coming out of the camp of Kevin Durant, because Kevin Durant has been notorious for unhappiness and having a camp around him where he is very forthcoming with his thoughts and ideas and feelings on the state of the teams that he's on. And that might be a result of what is occurring here when it comes to Frank Vogel, because there was part of that Athletic piece where it talked about Kevin Durant feeling he wasn't properly utilized in the offense and things of that nature. So, you know, the title of this podcast, which is actually episode 602. So shout out to Phoenix. That's my area code. Are you a 480 phone number?
I'm 480.
I'm a 602. 602.
I can't wait to get to 480.
602.
How come I didn't even know when we did 480? I wonder if I noticed.
You probably
I
didn't.
didn't notice.
But here on episode 602, I was going to say something. Can I run that back? Producer Ashley, run that back. What the fuck was I talking about? No, I don't know what I was talking about. But here on episode, it's titled The Aftermath. And the aftermath of this season being over is there is a lot of questions up in the air for this team. The organization has told us that all these questions are answered in the most simplistic form, that nothing is going to change, that they're not sure about the coach, the roster. They have their starting five set. They're going to try to improve and adjust around the fringes, which is all the things that Ishbia and Jones were stating, and that we're just going to run it back next season. We have a long offseason ahead of us. Think about it, okay? It's May 2nd. The NBA draft isn't until like the 24th of June. It's the 24th and 25th, I believe, because now they're doing the 2-day draft, right? Free agency doesn't start till the 6th of July. That's over 2 months away. So there's a lot of little things that can happen along the way. So make sure you stay tuned right here to the Suns Jam Session podcast. Whether you're watching along live or watching later or listening, we appreciate it. If you're on Twitter, head over to our YouTube page. Please support the pod through this offseason. Hit the thumbs up button, subscribe, rate, review. If you're listening, head over to Apple Podcasts, 5 stars, write a review. We'll read it right here on the pod. We've got plenty of time. We can sit here and I would love to do a whole episode where we're just reading reviews from our listeners. That'd be fantastic. We'll just call it like Reviewed. Really unique title there.
Yeah. No, we got to have you guys out there. That's your homework for the offseason, all right?
That's your homework. Give us 5 stars. You got time now. It's not like you can't, I was watching the Suns game, so I didn't have time. Unless your car battery runs out, you have the time. And a reminder, head over to the Autograph app, sign up for that, use promo code SunsJam, and follow the link in the descriptions below and go to Homage and get some really cool Suns gear. Like it's some of the most comfortable shirts I have are these Homage shirts. So I recommend doing that. And again, playback. Bright side of the sun. We're doing playback this postseason. So join us there if you want to kick it with a couple of idiots like us, drink some beers, watch some games, all that fun stuff. So anything else that you have to say before we get out of here, Matthew?
That's all I got. Everybody go home, love your family.
Amen. And we'll see you next time we see you.
Whatever.
Suns Jam Session, post-game thrill. John and Matthew, podcast skill. Analyzing games with comedic flair. Since 2019, they've been right here. Suns Jam Session, post-game pod. Talking Suns ball with the Jamster squad. From the Valley of the Sun, spreading the word. Original podcast, haven't you heard? Subreddit stakeout behind enemy lines. Batman, Valley, Lissy, and Curry combined. Reporting live with jokes to the brain. Adding flavor to the podcast game. Suns Jam Session, post-game pod. Talking Suns ball with the Jamster squad. From the Valley of the Sun, spreading the word. Original podcast, haven't you heard? Subreddit stakeout behind enemy lines. Batman, Valley, Lissy, and Curry combined. Reporting live with jokes to the brain. Added flavor to the podcast game. Suns Jam Session, post-game pod. Talking Suns ball with the Jamster squad. From the Valley of the Sun, spreading the word. Original podcast, haven't you heard? Die-hard fans are just passing through. Suns Jam Session's got some for you. Lick the eyes to the feet, spit a bite with the Suns through the day and the night. After every game, don't miss the beat. Suns Jam Session is gonna bring the heat. John and Matthew leading the way in the Suns podcast right on Thursday. Suns Jam Session, post-game pod, talking Suns ball with the